With the ATX vibe.
Austin, Texas, baby. Longhorn Nation, we're back.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon.
Boom.
All right. Well, okay. So Texas on a roll.
Still number one.
Still number one in the nation.
In the country, yes.
Love it, love it. So today we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about, we're going to recap the game, ULM at Texas. Texas continuing, maybe some good things we saw, some things that might need a little work.
A very B minus game that still 51-3 at home and still ranked number one in the country. So we'll talk about all the things, the atmosphere. Sarkisian had a press conference today. There was some fun stuff from there. Some really good topics we can talk about. We will give, of course, our favorite, what we saw in the offense that, that we loved or that we're looking for more of, defense, who we loved, who we're looking for more from, special teams, question mark.
But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
And we made some pretty good picks last weekend against the spread for college football. So we'll talk about the best stories of college football from the weekend. So much happened. Right. And of course, that affects the rankings. So we'll talk about the new AP Top 25 and who went up, who went down. That's going to be fun. And then we'll mention, like, for a second, our NFL teams, boo. Well, yours actually won. So
one of them did.
One of them won. So, oh, well.
Yeah.
And then we have a story or two we can share. Top story.
Of course. Of course.
Lots to talk about in the next hour.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into it. It was another hot one night game, latest kickoff that we've had this season so far, 7 p.m. game, Central Time, of course. What'd you think? Do you feel like the atmosphere was hopping? Was DKR ready? Was everything good?
So one of the largest crowds ever at DKR. And of course, when you're the number one team in the country, tickets are hot. They're sold out again. And then you combine that with it being a later game. So people who are concerned about the heat or who have, kids soccer or things during the day, they can get to the game still. So it was packed, inside and out. Tailgates were packed. The stadium was packed. And of course, people want to come see the night environment, the lights again. No drone show this time. I don't know if it was too windy.
Yeah, I think it was too windy because I
made it for nice breezy down where we were. Right. So that was good.
I'm always the crazy person that, like, as soon as the scout drones go up, I see them in the corner and I'm like,
I saw one over the north end forever.
Yeah, there were 4 of them. And so
the north
on the south end zone, which is what I can view very clearly, they definitely had the 2 scout drones there. And then I caught a glimpse of one of them over the north end. So I think what they do is they park those drones on the corner. And again, you're looking for, is it too windy? Can they actually maintain the show? And I think this time it was just a little too breezy.
You don't want to have burning pyrotechnics in the sky while the wind is
blowing it. Look, the orange smoke is enough.
We kept looking at the flags, and the flags had a good, whip to them. And we were like, it's probably too windy. And our friends who were with us who hadn't seen the drone show before, they were like, when's the drone show? It's between the third and fourth quarter. But look, and we were checking out the ones in the sky for a while. And there was one north end, and then we saw one kind of southeast corner for a while.
How spoiled have we gotten?
Oh, I know. Where's my drone show?
Where's my no drone show?
Wow. It's a pretty cool show. So the fans love it. And as far as the atmosphere, we know, again, Sark always thanks the students and the families, the alumni, and everyone for filling their seats, being there early, staying through the game. And this something different I saw in this game. Everyone has been staying. It's been crowded and packed the whole game. Students stay, even in a blowout, students stay. People were on their feet in this game and all over the stadium, which I haven't seen. It wasn't even, it was like 3rd and 3 and we're up by 35 and people were on their feet. It was crazy.
I've got to say, I feel like the excitement amongst Texas fans right now is just, it's at an all-time high compared to especially where we've been, recently. And it's fun to be a Longhorn again. People are excited. You mentioned this is one of the biggest crowds. I just want to give a shout out to the fans for showing up. I mean, sometimes you can say, oh, we get a little apathetic. We're used to it, but the number one team in the nation against ULM had every potential of being, Texas favored by how much did it end up being? 35 points, I think.
Yeah. 30. Yeah.
Yeah. And
44.5.
Okay. So huge point spread. And still Texas fans showed out and had the 5th largest crowd in DKR history. against ULM.
Until next week when we're going to pass that.
Right.
Probably.
So that to me is really impressive. And
Mhm.
I think it's awesome. The fans are showing up and supporting the team. Really quick too, got to give a shout out to the alumni band. I'm a band nerd. I wasn't in band, but my mom was, obviously, my sister, my brother-in-law. So I love watching the Longhorn band. And so the alumni band was there this weekend celebrating 125 years
It was
of the Longhorn band.
so cool. At
It
one
was-
point, there were like 1,000 people on
Yeah.
the field. So
Yeah.
if you're not familiar, the alumni band, I should have had a video ready. But the alumni band, they perform the President Student Marching Band comes out, and then they step to the side, and then every alumni who's ever been in the band is invited to come back.
Yeah.
They're invited to come practice and be
Mhm.
part of the march on alumni night, and they are still marching and playing and in formation, and it is amazing. And the twirlers from every decade,
Yeah.
they said they had 8 decades represented.
Yeah.
So twirlers and baton people, and I mean, they're all drum majors. They're all out there. It's so amazing, and what a one of the best traditions. And they said it's the largest alumni
Mhm.
band in the world.
Yeah.
What an amazing tradition, and because where we have. When the alumni band is getting ready, they are pumped. They were jumping up and down. They
They're
were
stoked.
pumped and excited. And
Right. Well, and this
Yeah.
was a good game. So typically, you know how we've been sticking the away game fans up in that upper north end zone corner. That's actually where the alumni band. So when you have a ticket allocation that you don't think the team is going to show up as much, we didn't anticipate ULM to travel very well. So that's where they put the alumni band too. So you got to admit that's a hike for some of those old timers up there coming all the way down from that upper corner. But they were pumped, they were ready, put on a great show. So it was a lot of fun. We'll post some of that content to our Fire the Cannon podcast and to Fire the Cannon Twitter a little bit later. That's a good quick note.
I shared some video the other day.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So if you are not following, please like and subscribe. Again, this is our new home on YouTube. We appreciate y'all being here. We appreciate you following the journey. Again, for here on YouTube, it is Fire the Cannon podcast. On both Insta and X, it is Fire the Cannon 1. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. Throw in comments. Let us know how you're feeling, what you want to talk about.
How good does it feel to be fans of the #1 team in the country?
Right.
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row, baby.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about this a little bit last week when we did our preview on Thursday. Pretty big point spread, right? 44.5 is, I think, where it topped out.
I didn't
for Texas.
see how in the world Texas was going to cover that with the backup quarterback, and knowing that they were going to have a lot of 2 and 3 and 4 deep on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
And all everyone did was ball out. They did bring Jaden Blue back a lot early and often and through the whole game. Trey Wisner, again, we know, was out. There were a lot of key players on defense, offense and defense, that rested or were recovering from injuries. Jelani McDonald and, of course, Quinn Ewers. And like we said, Trey Wisner. And there was I'll think of it in a second. The other DB was out too. So there was a lot of key players missing, and they didn't
skip a beat.
They didn't miss it. Yeah.
So of course we knew that. I appreciate that. I think you're still the cautiously optimistic fan when it comes to point spreads, and I'm the one that just guzzled.
Derek Williams was out, number 2,
and I just guzzled the burnt orange Kool-Aid at this point. So I'm ready, man. And so Texas, of course, 44.5 point spread. Texas covered that and made it look pretty easy for most of the game, if we're going to say that. Now,
there were sputtering moments, and there were young quarterback moments, and there were adjustments in the D-line connection moment, but few and far between, and never got unfazed. No one got unfazed in the game, and the plan was always the plan. The standard was always the standard.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think that's something too that we are very fortunate, again, to have your starting quarterback out for a game, both in the sense we're fortunate in the sense that we've not only got the depth, right, at quarterback at these key positions, that we feel comfortable switching in players at this point, with the preparation that the team is putting in. It's next man up mentality. When you get into a game where you can see the twos, where the twos are starting because of injury or because of resting, and then you start to see the 2s and 3s rotating in throughout the game to get that real game time experience. That's a great place to be in, where you're confident enough to have these guys in for significant playing time.
And no drop off in the offensive plan or the defensive execution.
You don't change the game plan because of that. That's a really great position to be in. And that's something that is not a mistake. That is clearly by design. That's something that Sarkisian has constantly talked about, look, the preparation is the same. It doesn't matter if we're playing ULM. It doesn't matter if we're playing Georgia or Michigan. The preparation is the same. And I think that he talked about that a little bit in his presser. So here's comments on that right now.
You know, I think our guys kind of believe in our formula for success. I think they believe in preparation. This group, most importantly, the preparation, the practice that creates the confidence to just go play. You know, I don't think that we've played to what the thought was supposed to be, meaning this is a big game, we need to be up for this one, or maybe this is a lesser opponent, and we come down and we don't have the mental intensity. I think they're so focused on what we need to do that we stay really consistent in our approach throughout the week, and we stay really consistent in pregame warmups. We stay really consistent when we come out of the locker room. Now, this group's confident, and their confidence comes from the belief of the preparation that they put into it. And so I love that our personality is coming out of this team. I think we've got a pretty cool swagger about us right now, but that swagger has been earned because of the work that they put in and day out.
All right. The standard is the standard, right? They talk about this all the time. We know, especially last week with the media was saying, oh, here comes the hype about Arch. Here comes the hype about being ranked #1. Like all these things were on Texas at the same time. And how were they going to come out? Were they going to come out, overlooking, maybe perhaps looking ahead for the SEC game next week? Or when you're coming in 44.5 point favorites, are you not going to take them seriously? And we even heard the ULM coach last week talk, throw a little bulletin board. Well, they're not going to prepare for us like they would for another team. We're nobody or whatever he was saying. But they
mediocre group of 5, I think is what he called himself.
And outside of a few penalties that were uncharacteristic, and that's Sark called them today. I don't know if they're uncharacteristic because we've seen them now every game, but there were some, early holding, especially some stuff we'll talk about special teams later, but outside of a few sloppy penalties that, gave themselves longer drives than they needed to start the game, they executed, they stuck with the plan. It was overall a pretty clean game. And when you win by 48, you have to really start finding things that they can build on and clean up. And there was a lot of it, but how is anyone mad at that, right? 48-point win.
Like we've mentioned before, it's a lot easier to criticize and it's a lot easier to tweak small things throughout the season when you're winning, right? It's easier to go in and say, okay, we won by a lot, but now let's really focus on these little things to perfect our game. Let's talk about that. Arch's debut, much talked about, much ado. And for the most part, I think he performed really well. Now, am I willing to ordain him the second coming of, burnt orange baby Jesus? No, I don't think we're there yet. He definitely had some freshman decision-making moments. He definitely had some mistakes that just, with a little more experience, perhaps he wouldn't have made. So his numbers came out on Arch's debut. He was 15 of 29 with a 51.7% completion ratio. Now, that is something that Sark talked about. Look, want to get those numbers up a little bit. And Sark, I like that he pointed this out. He felt that it was a combination of the play calling. So he owned a lot of it. But he also said, look, Arch throws a really great long ball. He's better than most at the long ball, and he really likes those long balls. So what we were seeing, and I think Texas fans, you watched the game as well, you saw this too. I think Arch really wasn't checking down as much as he could have. He wasn't going for those easy dink and dunk passes, the freebies, as Sark called them. He was really looking for that long ball almost exclusively in the first half. Started to get a few intermediate passes there in the second half, but and let me tell you, when he connected, it was thrilling. It was amazing.
He still had pretty good odds on those long balls.
He did. But
yeah, let's talk about that. So what are the advantages and disadvantages when you're trying to coach up because he is still young, a young quarterback that's so talented and has that huge arm and can move and still make those deep passes? How do you coach him to check down when needed? Because there was a couple where he threw like literally into triple coverage, or that should have been intercepted, and that were.
Right. We saw tip balls. We saw.
Yeah. One was intercepted. They was trying to throw it away or something. But how do you coach that when also he has the fastest wide receiving core in the country?
Yeah.
And there is a wide receiver down the field wide open.
Yeah.
How do you not take that shot?
Yeah.
Right. And how that's the problem. That's the catch-22, right?
Good problem to have. But yeah. I think you're right. It's a bit of a question of how do you teach a show stallion how to trot? Right?
Yeah.
How do you teach him how to kind of, he's raring to go, he's ready, he wants to go balls to the wall, full blast. How do you pull him? How do you rein him in? And I think the simplest answer for that is just experience.
Exactly.
Right? Game time experience. Now, of course, I think this is a great opportunity for the coaches. And even Sark said this. He said, I'm kicking myself a little bit for, having some play calls. I should have given him some more freebies. I should have given him some more play calls that it was specifically designed where he wasn't checking down, but the goal was those intermediate or short passes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, Sark also brought up that he wants to see the screen game improve. So again, Texas fans, I know we have a little bit of PTSD with bubble screens and whatnot, but we did win a national championship with the bubble screen.
Yes,
so
times have changed.
Times have changed. But yeah, that's one thing Sark mentioned that he really wants the team to work on this week is getting those screens a little better, which again, I think would help Arch's game. You call some more of those plays, you give him a little more comfortable, almost force his hand at that point where he has no choice, but you're either going to throw it short or you're going to throw it away. That's it. Right.
Well, we know anytime you have a young quarterback, and we'll talk about this on Thursday when we preview Mississippi State, who's going to play with probably a true freshman or a freshman or redshirt freshman. Anytime you have a young quarterback, pressure. And that is what ULM did. They brought in pressure from the first down. There were pressure, and Art had to throw it away, right?
Yeah.
Kind of throw it up, got lucky, and then later more pressure, and that was the first interception.
Yeah.
So you can see him being evasive. He still has that footwork, and he moved, and then you can see the offense start to move the pocket a little more, give him more protection because that pressure was coming. But that's how you get at a young quarterback is pressure,
right.
And he's smart, and some things went his way, and some things did not, and that's why 51.7% passing is not great. It's not good. We saw way worse this weekend. We saw way worse, but those aren't numbers Sark wants. Those aren't numbers Quinn was putting up. Right. So like Sark said today, just a few more tweaks on the play calling, a few more looks at this, and you're at 65%, right? So It doesn't take much to just connect on a few more, and then you're really moving. But he had no problems overall moving the chains, getting first downs, getting key plays when he needed to. And another advantage to those deep throws was space for the running game because it came. Finally, space was coming for that running game.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the O-line a little bit here.
Yes.
I think it's easy to watch a game like this and say, okay, did the O-line not give quite as good protection for their number 2 QB as they would for their QB1 for Ewers? We know that Ewers and the O-line has incredible connection, incredible chemistry there. Mm-hmm. But I think it's easy to get caught up in that thought when really I think what we were seeing was just more the product of a freshman, redshirt freshman playing in his first start where, yes, I think the O-line held up really well. We know we've got one of, if not the best O-lines in the nation. They created a solid pocket for him, but Arch got a little overexcited at times. Mm-hmm. He might have, been doing some things, a little bit of miscommunication between the O-line. But I really want to say, I think the O-line did great given the situation, given their limited starting time, limited reps with Arch. I think some of that, what we were seeing where it felt like Arch certainly got hit a lot more than Quinn did, but I'm not putting that on the O-line. Yeah. I'm going to say this was a product of Arch.
He also stands up there way longer.
He does.
Way longer.
Because he's not going
to count the time, like throw it, get rid of it.
Well, and again, that's where
is youth.
Yeah. Youth, right. And then that just his hesitation to check down, to read down, mm-hmm. where Quinn this year, and this is a great improvement for Quinn from this year compared to last year. Quinn kind of had that issue last year, too.
We talked about it.
We talked about it a lot where he wasn't checking down. He wasn't looking at the easy passes. And Quinn has made a big jump this year for that. Mm-hmm. So when you put that in stark contrast with, again, a redshirt freshman coming in, that propensity to throw the long ball, to get those big gains and not check down quite as much, you're making the O-line's job that much mm-hmm. harder. So, yes, Arch definitely got more roughed up than Quinn has. But again, I'm going to say the O-line did their job. I think they did a really great job. That's just going to come with experience of Arch coming in and going, all right, maybe I should go through my reads a little quicker, find the open guy. I mean, there were plenty of times that I saw Jaden Blue wide open, right?
Oh,
Wide
no,
open in a short yardage situation,
and just a couple where he missed him, just missed him,
zinging it a little too much.
One would have been Jaden Blue down the sideline all the way, and another went right through his hands and interception, the second interception.
Sure.
But you mentioned the O-line. Let's talk about that. So they, we know that they've had a rotation of running backs now behind them, going deep into the depth chart right now with the running backs. But they did establish a line at several rushing touchdowns. Blue alone had 3 rushing touchdowns. Jared Gibson had a beautiful rushing touchdown. They gave him time to, like I said, those deep throws. He had time to throw those. But what was really noticeable is, let's talk about the O-line. We have a great clip of Hayden Connor. So this would be the touchdown number 5 of the day. And this was a run, a Jared Gibson freshman who leads the team in carries. I don't know, after Saturday, I think Blue might have passed him back up. So this was pretty great. So if you notice at the end, Hayden Connor gets in the face of let's watch it. I love it. That's the nasty, not dirty, tough, gritty, like
that's
confident,
big uglies.
Yes, big ugly. That's what you want. Like, son, step off. Like, like that kid, like the guy was small, and Hayden didn't even have to. He had his hand up in his mask.
So the ULM had literally had his hand and fingers up around Hayden's throat. You could see it on the broadcast at a little different angle. And of course, that's not a great thing to do to O linemen. That's the quickest way to piss them off.
Yeah,
very easily could have been called for illegal hands to the face.
But it says even more that all he had to do was like stand over him, like, okay, little, that was great. But what a great touchdown. So let's the offense. We know we had some players that we really wanted to give shout outs to. So I'll let you go first. Who do you just have to give some love to after this weekend? We know Arch came in and that was his first start. Numbers didn't blow you away, but the overall
got the job done.
But 51-3 will do it. All right. So who do you want to give some love to?
You know what I would like to do is, we've talked about this a little bit this season. I think it'd be really cool if Texas would offer like a Rojo award, right? Just the players that have come in and maybe things haven't worked out the way that they anticipated, but they're there for the team and they want to step up and be ready. So if I'm going to give out a Rojo award every week, for this week, I want to call out Juwan Davis. Because Juan, sorry, I always do that with him.
Yeah, Juan Davis.
But I want to call him out for that, because he has stepped up. He showed up, and he's really showing out in kind of this hybrid H-back situation where he's blocking his brains out. He's doing what he needs to do. The touches that he gets, he's productive, but he's there for the team. So for me, that feels like a big Rojo Award moment for this week. So
yeah, good call, especially when he's still not tight end 1 behind Gunnar Helm, but he has a huge role, and he was out there like almost 40% of the snaps this week and really helping out because they're down running back, so he can get in there and help block. We saw him pick up a blitz or 2 in the game, and he got to catch a pass or 2 too. So that was really nice. I like Juan Davis. I want to give a shout out, a Rojo kind of Jay Witt kind of award to Ryan Niblett. So we know Ryan Niblett, he was wide receiver. He could have transferred when all these superstar experienced older players came. He stayed with the process, even stepped up to take on a running back role, help out in the running back role even more this year because, because of all the injuries.
Right.
And when he was awarded he got some good strong runs. He got a touchdown that looked like a touchdown to me where he dove for the pylon, but they took it away and Texas gave him the ball, but this time right up the middle. And his dance, but not only was he like jamming and excited, and then he did the dance again for us because then the touchdown counted. Everybody came to celebrate with him. People understand like what he means to the team and those kind of things. That's what the culture is. Like that's what the culture of this program is about. So when you think of Rojo and Jay Witt, you're also going to think about Juan Davis and Ryan Niblett and all these other players that sacrifice to be able to contribute to the team. So that's amazing.
No, I love it. And I think, part of what we're seeing too, we've talked about this a little bit, that Texas swagger is coming back, right? We used to see the teams in the early 2000s, that 04, that 05 team, the 08, the 09 team. They had just that kind of swagger in their step, right? They knew they were, Rod Babers talks about it a lot, that iron sharpens iron, and you fire trial by fire, and fire makes fire better. Just watching this team, they have worked with each other for so long. They've got that camaraderie, and they're really playing together as a team. We keep talking about it. We know you're probably tired of hearing the word, but culture matters, right?
Mhm.
And every player, I mean, Sark even talked about it this time in his presser today, is that the players have bought in. The players know what the game plan is, and they're putting the prep in, they're putting the work in, and they're consistently giving their all. Every practice, every snap, every down. And one thing he said that I really loved hearing is that they're not counting the snaps, they're making the snaps count.
Mhm.
Right. And I thought that just really embodies the attitude of this team. And we shouldn't take that for granted as Texas fans. We shouldn't take that for granted, because we've seen in years past, we've had very talented teams, but maybe that mentality hadn't quite developed. That mentality wasn't quite there. So yeah, I think we're really seeing that come out in every aspect of the game. And it's fun to watch, man. They're having fun again. It's fun to be there to witness it.
Another difference that you can see the growth and maturity in this team, that same drive where Ryan Niblett had his touchdown taken away, and which looked good. And then he had to run it again earlier in that same drive. That was where I think it was Silas Bolden that had the diving catch, or Bolden, and the whole crowd went crazy. He laid out for it. Looked to him that he had his hands under it.
Yes,
and even his forearm a little bit. And of course, they took that away. So that earlier in the same drive. Previously in years of Texas, when you have a big play, it's taken away. You see kind of heads down, and then all the next one's a false start.
The wind goes out of the
the wind will go out. And what did they do? They responded with a deep pass to to Bond. And then you have, moving the ball again. And there was no hesitation in twice in that drive. A huge catch and a touchdown were called back by the refs, and all they did was answer again. And that really goes to show the maturity. And again, the standard is the standard. They're not going to be distracted by a questionable call or what they just play on, shake it off. And that goes to the growth and maturity of the team too, because we've seen that go different in years past.
We have. And, I think we see that with quarterback play too. I want to give, again, a little more props to Arch here. That's something that we noticed that, Sark was saying in last year when Arch came in and played a little bit, if he'd have a turnover, it would kind of mess with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'd get to his head a little bit. But in this game, even though, they were definitely his turnovers, one of them definitely on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them, you could argue maybe just a little too zippy on the pass, but it got tipped up. It's hard to hold a tipped ball against a quarterback in most circumstances.
Right.
But Sark said, look, he had the turnover and he brushed it off. No big deal. Kind of like we saw with Quinn at the beginning of the season, right? Quinn had a similar situation. First drive, came out, had an interception, came to the sideline, said, all right, no big deal. I got it. We'll handle it back out. And he went down and marched down. So I think that shows a lot of maturity, like you were mentioning, through the team. And you're seeing that at every level. It's not just one player. It's not just one position. It is every single player, every single position really has that maturity to say, yep, it's all right. We can learn. We can do the things in game. We know what we've got to do. And if things don't go exactly our way, F it. We move on. We ball. We go.
F
right?
it, we ball.
So,
all right. So even though this was Quinn's, Quinn is resting the abdominal strain, and he was not the starter of this game.
mm-hmm.
Arch got QB1 reps. We know he practiced all week with QB1. There was still a lot of talk. I think it was made pretty clear that Arch, it's not just that Quinn is QB1, but the team is still rallying behind QB1. So we know our buddy CB caught this on the broadcast, and it's gotten over 10,000 likes because people are in it. People agree. Yes, Quinn is QB1.
Coming into this game, I knew about the hype around Arch Manning, but if you know this program, you know.
It goes on, but it's you can see Quinn hyping up. Jade Barron's behind, like, hell yeah, let's go. Like his hype man, right? Like you said.
Yeah.
And they are going, like Quinn is in there. He's engaged. He has the headset on. He's listening to the play calls. He's engaged. When after Arch's first interception, he was down on the bench and Quinn was right there with him. And, Millie was there and they were looking it up. They have the new little pads now, the little iPad things.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking it up and they were going at it. But Quinn was right there coaching with him, learning with him. And that just shows you he's a leader of this team.
Absolutely.
And his leadership has been questioned. Like whether he's vocal enough or all the things they question a leader needs to be. But Quinn leads on the field, and now he's adding more of that animated. Not that people need to be a character or animated character of themselves, but you can see the confidence and the belief, and people look to him now, even if he's not dressed out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. I mean, there's zero question. Now, we'll talk a little bit later in this show about quarterback controversies and maybe some Power 5 teams that are questioning who to start, who they've got going.
Mm-hmm.
What I've really loved through this whole process, like, of course, we don't want Quinn hurt. Of course, you never want to see injury. But what I really have loved is in the case that it has happened, Sark has never wavered, right? There's never a question of, we're going to go week to week and see who the starter is. Oh, we're going to go, right. We're not sure.
At other schools.
Right. And we could talk about, I mean, F it, let's talk about it now, right? OU is having some identity crisis with who their quarterback is. We know that Arnold did not have his best outing
and got pulled
in favor of their backup. And we see that at A&M too. And I think that the stark difference to me, we know that Wigman got hurt for A&M. But the stark difference for me is that after Ewers got hurt, the conversation never wavered. It was always Quinn is our quarterback, period, hard stop, period.
Yeah.
No question after that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you look at the Wigman situation with Reed coming in, and Reed did a good job. Reed did a good job given what he was given. But Elko's coming in and saying, we're going to go week to week. We're going to see who the quarterback is week to week. And like we've said many times, if you've got two quarterbacks, you don't have one, right? And I appreciate these two programs are in very different places right now, and that's okay. That's okay. But I thought for me, when I was watching those two things, that was just a point that was very, very, it just stuck out to me that no question, Quinn is the quarterback. He is the leader of this team. He is our guy. As soon as he's healthy and he's good to go, he's our quarterback, period. End of discussion. I really liked having that confidence and that understanding of how things are going to play out. While we're still talking about offense real quick, I did want to ask a question while we're talking about protecting injuries, while we're talking about recovering. We saw Jaden Blue in, which I think was a little bit, for me, I was a little surprised to see him get the number of carries that he got. 4 touchdowns, really was running out, touched the ball quite a bit. I'll get the numbers here in a minute. But were you surprised that he was out there as much as he was? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, because it's not in his history to carry the ball that many times in a game. But he was getting stronger. He was still mobile. We saw Jarrett Gibson come in for a bit, and then they gave Ryan Niblett some run with the ball. Like, they moved it around a bit, and then Jaden Blue was back again.
Right.
So they were saying, Sark said that it wasn't so much, it was more like the bruise on his ankle more than the actual ankle or something. So if the pain wasn't there, he could go. And so he worked really hard with the trainers. He was fit and healthy. He even did extra conditioning so that he would be ready to go.
Yeah. 25 carries for 124 yards. He was averaging 5 yards per carry, 3 rushing touchdowns. And I believe he had the receiving touchdown as well. So, yeah, again, I love to see it. In Sark, I trust. I have faith that our guys are honest about where they are health-wise. But I've got to admit, watching the game, I was a little on edge, little nervous. Like, man, he's still in. He's still going.
Yeah.
He's still running hard, which I love to see. But also, oh man, if there is a time to rest your players, we really do have a favorable schedule at this point to get some guys some rest, rotate a lot of those players in. So.
Well, when he did get rest, we got to see late in the game Colin Page. So we'll give a little love to Colin Page because he had some nice footwork. I would notice that he had the ball like in contact, and then he went high and tight when he was on the move. He had some good little stuff on film in that game. So that was really nice to know that even in the fourth quarter, the ball is being protected. They're moving down. Of course, they went for it on 4th down and didn't get it, but that was nice little movement, down at the end. And yeah, that was really nice. So, one last thing about offense, DeAndre Moore went out early, one of the third play of the game,
right.
His first reception, he kind of got a helmet like to the side. And I don't know if that's why he didn't come back, but we didn't see him after that.
Right.
And so
had a hip flexor, I think he
kind of got hit right in the side.
Right.
So Yeah, I hope he's okay. And then we know this morning he was practicing. They say he was practicing. I don't know to what extent. And then they said Quinn was also practicing this morning.
Yeah. So quick question. One other thing that I want to point out, we've talked about the good, we've given some praise, we've given some props. Something that surprised me a little bit, at the beginning of this year, I had said, I think this is going to be a breakout year for Cook. He's been kind of quiet through 4 games. Any reason for that? What are you thinking?
I think there's just so many great receivers. And he had 1 catch for 15 yards. I think just he was targeted a couple more times that didn't get to him. Only half the receptions got to the receivers this weekend. But I just think it's just one of those things. He had more play last week. Arch came out. He's comfortable with Cook. He's comfortable with Wingo. Those are the ones he practices more with. So it'll come. There's so many great receivers and only so many balls to go around.
Right. That's
right.
Fair. That's fair.
I don't think he's in the doghouse or anything. I just think it'll come. It'll be his turn. They're all getting
next man up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Defense.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you kind of run out of words at a certain point.
They've only given up 22 points in 4 games.
Yeah, and that is the 3rd fewest allowed since 1965 through 4 games. That's pretty crazy.
And teams that are averaging 27 points a game when they're not playing Texas.
Yeah.
And against Texas, we've given up an average of 5 points a game. I mean,
yeah, tied for first right now for if I had told you after losing the production that we lost between last year and this year on the D line, and seeing some of the performances we saw last year, with the DBs, kind of in that secondary, if I had told you Texas defense would be this stout and be at this point in the season, how would you have looked at me like I'm crazy? What would you have thought?
Well, the teams we haven't played crazy wild offenses. We're not playing the best of the best offenses. They do, like I said, they do average 27 points a game, all those teams together when they play other teams. So holding them to a few points each game is phenomenal, right? Anytime you hold teams well under their usual score. And it also does help when the offense is moving, and the defense gets rest. They get time to adjust. The preparation, the game plans, we've talked about the versatility of the players all over the field, how well they've done to fill the needs out of the transfer portal on defense. It's quite impressive. Adding Johnny Nansen to help PK with these schemes and just the versatility. It's pretty amazing that they're so connected right now. Yeah. It felt like last year there was some really big disconnections between whatever was happening and the DBs, safeties felt really disconnected with whatever was happening up front right now. And going into this game, I was like, oh, we need more from the linebackers. And all the linebackers did was show that, hey, we're here too. And then they ended up being the best players on the field on Saturday. Yeah. So just impressive. They're so connected. They all have a plan. Like Sark said, the defense is working well because they all know what they're doing and why they're doing it. Yeah, that's huge.
I'm really glad you brought that up. That stuck out to me as something that he mentioned in the presser, the why. They're able to explain why now. And if you recall 3-4 years ago, when he was explaining the 5-7 season and saying, look, this is not what we want, but there is a plan. There's, you start making sure the fundamentals are right. And unfortunately, with the team that and the players that Sark took over in his first year, some of the fundamentals were lacking in a way that they shouldn't have been at a program like Texas. And then you get into it and he says, okay, then they understand the plays and they understand the playbook. But it's and he said this early on, which again, just gives you so much confidence on this is all by design. The man knows what he's doing and he's sticking to his plan. But he said early on, it's when the players start to understand the why and the why they can explain it and the why becomes natural for them. He said, that's when we really start rolling. So to hear him say, to kind of recall back to that and to hear him say, oh man, like our players get it. The D can tell you the why now. And without skipping a beat, they know the why and why they're there and why they're doing what they're doing. That to me just made me go, oh man, this is like a full circle moment, right? Like, holy shit, this guy's really on top of it. So I appreciate that you caught that. I appreciate you bringing that up. So just looking at the numbers again, ULM, and you're right, not a world beater. We knew that. But still, these numbers.
They came in averaging 31 points a game in their first 2 games. Yeah. So it's not like they can't move the ball or score points.
Right. Yeah. So these numbers are still pretty impressive. ULM only had 7 first downs, 7 total. They were 2 of 12 in third down efficiency. They only had 111 total yards. Now, if I recall correctly, the second half of the game, most of those came in the first half. Second half of the game, ULM, again, when Texas, we had the starters in, and then the 2s, the 3s, some 4s were rotating in. ULM only produced 8 yards of total offense in the second half.
Yep.
I don't care who you're playing. That is a phenomenal stat.
Even though Texas was going 2 and 3 deep, 4 deep in the defense.
Right. So ULM ended up with 54 yards passing, 57 yards rushing. So pretty balanced attack or attempt at an attack there.
Balanced 54 yards passing, 54 yards
Listen,
rushing.
if we're going to seek the silver lining for the Warhawks, I'm going to say at least you were evenly bad.
They were okay. The Texas defense was so good when ULM actually got a first down. Everybody's like, "What the?"
Right? No, we were talking about this earlier. That has been such a shift to watch this team this year for me. When the offense stumbles a little bit, right, or when the defense allows a 4-yard run, you just want to throw up and go, "What are we doing?"
That's how good they've gotten.
That's how quickly this team has developed and been just absolutely lights out, dominating in their games.
Again, the level of competition is going to get better.
We understand
going
that.
to get better.
But what a fun time to be like. We get to be spoiled fans again, and that's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, because there's been times where the level of competition wasn't that great, and Texas didn't survive or dominate the way they're dominating.
Right.
Even if they survive, they didn't dominate. And right now, Texas is averaging over 50 points a game at home, only giving up a field goal or so. It's impressive. Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, so Texas did a really good job of keeping pressure on the quarterback throughout the whole game. You feel bad for him at a certain point when he's just running for his life.
Booty,
at any given time. Now, coming into the game, we know that he had some experience with OU, right? He was part of that 49-0 thrashing.
Yeah,
so
he was on that sideline. At least this time he got a field goal against Texas.
There's that. Funny that he scored more with the Warhawks than he did with the Sooners against Texas. That's a pretty interesting stat there, which, again, one of those things I wouldn't have said or wouldn't have predicted. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, I think that, Booty was running for his life the whole time. Texas did a really good job dragging him down. He looked like the gazelle getting chased by lions out there. Was there a player that stood out to you on defense that you're like, damn?
So we know that statistically, Pro Football Focus gave Anthony Hill the highest grade, 90.7 of all linebackers this weekend. Jahdae Barron, 4th highest of total defenders in the college football world. But my own eyes watching the game, the names one name that really stood out to me live was Vernon Broughton. I felt like he was mobile. He was pressuring. He was after the quarterback. I got some great video, and as I was going through my video that I took of the defense, it felt like he was everywhere. Vernon Broughton had a great game, and he's been really consistent this season. I think he's really improving his draft stock. This is his last year at Texas. So I hope that he's putting a lot of good stuff on film, that he has a high motor. And when you have to live up to De'Mondre Sweat and Byron Murphy from last year, I feel like Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins are doing that, and they can get rotation with, Lole and the other players that they brought in on the D line. I didn't mean to do that. So that's, I have to give a shout out to Vernon Broughton. Yeah. And who do you have on the defense? There's so many great players.
Yeah, I love it. Again, Jahdae Barron, I feel like that's just a quick gimme to give the shout out to.
So versatile.
Let me say this. Yeah, his versatility, again, we're seeing him at 3 different positions. And we know that Sark talked about this a little bit, like versatility was kind of the Pee Wee Herman word of the day for this season, right? He wants to get the players in. He wants to build up their draft stock. He wants to show that these guys are skilled and they're smart enough to be able to master positions or different positions throughout their time here at Texas. And so watching Barron he is flying all over the field. He's smart. He's the ball hawk. He's always there. But the other thing that I want to give props to that we don't always point out, we talked about it a little bit earlier with that hype video that our buddy CV posted, or with, Quinn Ewers on the sideline hyping up his guys. What stuck out to me was Barron right behind him, acting like his hype man on stage, right? Like, yeah, man, everything. So Quinn would talk, Barron was right there supporting him. Quinn would say something else.
Get you somebody that loves you the way Barron.
Get you someone that supports you.
The
Exactly.
way Barron supports
Quinn. Exactly. No, but again, I think that speaks to just really the chemistry with this team and that everybody is fully bought in and these guys really love each other. And that's especially encouraging to see because we had heard last year some rumors. I'm rolling my eyes heavily as I say that.
We don't need to bring that up.
Well, just you hear the rumors that, oh, those guys aren't getting along, but clearly that's not a problem.
Clearly they do.
Right. And so don't believe everything here. Don't believe all the rumors that you see. You know, believe what you see with your own eyes. Believe what you see the team producing and what you see them doing. So yeah, I again, maybe that's a gimme. But I was just really impressed with that. So how about you? Any other comments on defense? What
Leon Galafau, we have to talk about him. Young, in the right place, powerful, strong. He and Anthony Hill Jr. have the same position, yet they were both defensive players of the week, according to Sark.
Yep.
You mentioned him during the game, like, wow, this kid's flying around. He had that. He had the safety, and Jordan Johnson-Rebel jumped in. So all these young guys were out there, and he got to give love there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's fun to see. The future looks bright. You know, let's focus game to game. The team's going to focus game to game. We know what the goal is this year. It's natty or bust, right? But you've still got to be encouraged watching these young guys come in and develop and get some serious playing time and ball it out when they're in there. Again, they're not counting snaps, but they're making snaps count. And I think it's just been really fun to watch the development of these young players come in.
One more defensive player we got to kind of give a little side shout out because it didn't even happen on the field, but there was a play where, was it Bolden that had kind of a punt return, I think he had a punt return, and he got tripped up on the sideline, and then one of the ULM players had his leg for the tackle, but then held onto his leg and kind of pulled it, or almost looked like he wanted to twist it or something. Like somebody can get really hurt that way.
It was definitely an ill-advised, if not ill-intended.
It was late and it was dirty and no flag, but it was obviously not part of the play or safe, right? And that happened right on the Texas sideline. And who jumps up ready to help the wide receiver was Ty Anthony Smith. And he got pulled back by the collar. But I love that. Yeah, but the coach pulled him back. The coach pulled him like, get back here, son. Like, we know we're not doing that, right? But I love that he was ready to jump up and stand up for his teammate. And that shows you, not that we've talked about this before. We don't want a bunch of, punk kids fighting. That's not what we're about. But you do stand up and let them know, hey, yeah, that we're all, just like when the O lineman did that for Quinn a couple of games ago. Like that's what you want. Like let them know. That's my boy. You don't mess with them. That's my guy.
That's a team there. All right, real quick, let's talk special teams a little bit.
Yeah.
We got to talk about it. So
let's do the good first. The good of special teams.
Absolutely. Listen, Auburn, our boy Auburn, best hair in football. He's killing it. He's absolutely killing it. As of this game, he is 140 of 140 for extra points, which is freaking impressive. Having that kind of consistency. Again, he's moving up in the record books in Texas for a lot of different things. And by the end of his career, we could see him surpassing the names of, Justin Tucker, of Dawson, of some really true greats, Hunter Lawrence. It's going to be exciting to watch what he's doing, but hasn't missed.
Dicker the
kicker, absolutely. So shout out to Auburn for just being our rock, being steady so far. Knocking on wood, all the wood I can find, right? But that's been a nice comfort to see there. All right. So
I'll just wrap up the special teams with say what needs improvement. What I thought would be great because it was so great last year was not just kick coverage, which we haven't played great competition yet, so that hasn't really been an issue. But kick returns, punt returns, feels like they're running sideways. They don't have a block. They're standing. They're having to go back and chase balls or not be in great position to catch the balls and do anything with it. I don't understand what's happening with that yet. We know Jeff Banks is an elite special teams coordinator, so if there are questions, it's getting fixed. I mean, we saw they went from red zone question marks last year to #1 in the country in red zone.
Right.
Third down, couldn't get off the field. Third down, one of the best in the country this year. All the things that were glaring mistakes last year, they fixed them. So I know that we trust now that this coaching staff will fix this, and especially because they brought in elite returners like Silas Bolden, and you would expect that there would be more from this. DeAndre Moore was started with he got the first kick return, but then he had that injury early.
Yeah.
So then Golden went in later for kick returns. We saw Bolden on punt returns. So I know they'll get it fixed, but I was expecting more from the return game at this point, and we're 4 games in, and
I would agree with that. One of the things that stood out to me, I think I messaged you this during the game, or we certainly talked about it when we were watching it again. One of the things that struck me was that Bolden seemed to be just playing a really short field. Excuse me. And that's, you understand, maybe it happens once or twice, but it felt like almost every punt that he was fielding, he was playing that short field, which makes you wonder, like, what were the coaching decisions for that? Was this a thing where he was just underestimating the kicker? Was he being told to be up there? But I agree, that's something, it really put Texas at a disadvantage because he was backpedaling quite a bit, or chasing down the ball, sometimes over his shoulder, where he had to actually just turn around and book it to try to catch it. And it put Texas in some dangerous situations, I would say, in not favorable situations. So I agree, that's something, if we're being nitpicky and if we're looking at every phase of the game, that's definitely an area that Texas has a lot of room for improvement on.
Right. Okay. But overall, Texas, solid B-ish performance. There's lots to clean up, but when you win 51-3 and there's lots to clean up, they're only going to get better every week. They are improving every week. This is when Sark said that everyone's going to play, everyone's going to get developed. We have a long season and we need to build depth. He was not playing around. When he said he was expanding that receiving core and more people are going to get trusted with the ball and move it around, he was not messing around.
Yeah.
So this weekend, Mississippi State comes to Austin, 3:15 p.m. We will preview that on Thursday, and we'll have lots to talk about with that. So before we move on to college football, talk about our picks from last weekend, let's share something fun about our friend Chuck and his beautiful land.
Absolutely. So if you guys are looking for an absolutely amazing, perfect Texas experience for this football season, you have got to check out Rock and Diamond S Ranch. It is seated on 120 acres in the beautiful hill country near Johnson City. It's actually located in Blanco. And it's a quick drive to Austin or San Antonio. The property sleeps 14. So there's a main home and 2 cabins that go along with it, fully decked out for each one of them. And the wildlife watching is just amazing. We've been out there. We've enjoyed it. It's fully stocked ponds, so you can fish. You can play with the Longhorns. You can come out and meet our Longhorns. You can feed them, have a good time with them. There's a beautiful indoor, outdoor eating and cooking area. It is a great party home. Of course, an outdoor pool as you're viewing now. Just a really beautiful piece of property. You're only 5 minutes from downtown Blanco with breweries, eateries, shopping, and more. So
great burgers.
Absolutely.
So close by.
Absolutely. So if you guys are in town for F1 or even the Georgia game or any Texas games, or you're just looking for a staycation, you have to check out Rock and Diamond S. So what you need to do is check them out, rockanddiamondsranch.com, or give Chuck a call at 512-694-1969 and tell him that Fire the Cannon sent you. He'll take good care of you for that amazing Texas experience. So check him out. It's a pretty great place.
Beautiful.
So,
all right. So yes, we will. And we'll share that again on Twitter too. So if you missed the link or you need the number, we'll share that. It's beautiful. And we'll also, when you do click on the link, you can go see inside the house and how it's all decked out. Beautiful Texas decor.
Absolutely.
Okay. So last weekend, let's quickly recap how college week 4 went down. I'd like to say I picked 2 bold upsets and they both happened.
You did. I'm impressed.
I did. I picked him. I shot my shot. I said it with my chest. All right. So Illinois at Nebraska. We both actually picked Nebraska to win because we thought the home field, the Friday night, everything would come through. That game went to overtime. I think so. The superstar in the making, young quarterback for Nebraska, Dylan Raiola. He was 24 for 35, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns. But the problem is he took too many sacks and he lost field position when it really mattered.
Right.
he had negative 52 yards on 7 carries. You can't.
Hard to win games.
Eventually, he will learn when to throw it away. But Illinois brought the pressure. Illinois got to him. Their quarterback had a strong game too. But what do you think? We were watching that game on Friday night.
We were actually at your bonus daughter's wedding.
Yeah.
And once the ceremony was done, once the speeches were done and dinner was going on, we both had
our phones. We were watching on our phones.
And of course, like I said, I may take some heat from Texas fans, whatever, deal with it. I like Nebraska.
Yeah,
I was rooting for Nebraska.
We were cheering for Nebraska.
Yeah.
On our little phones, but we had service. Okay, so did you know, according to Max Olson, Nebraska has lost 25 consecutive games against AP top 25 teams. That's the second longest Power 4 streak behind Rutgers.
Yeah, that's
and they almost had it.
They did. Again, I think Matt Rule is the right coach for Nebraska. And I'm going to say this again. I think the trajectory of what Nebraska is going through can be comparable to what Texas went through, right? A perennial powerhouse that has a lot of history, is a traditional blue blood, kind of fell in the dumps there for a while, really struggled after a beloved coach left.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had a coaching search. They kind of sifted through coaches trying to find the right one. They thought they had their person, and the prodigal son returns home, right? Scott Frost comes home. They think he's going to be the guy for Nebraska, and it just didn't work out. Kind of like Tom Herman didn't work out for Texas. But now, right after that prodigal son returns and didn't work out, both teams are kind of, I think both teams have found a coach that really fits their program and understands everything that needs to be done. So don't count Nebraska out yet.
They're not back yet.
They're not back yet.
They're not back.
But they're
it's
definitely
official. It's official. They're not back.
That's true. But I do think they are in a position right now that they are figuring out who they are. They're building that identity. They're a few years behind where Texas is, but I think we're going to start to see Nebraska be in closer and closer games and hopefully return to Nebraska that we all knew before.
Okay.
So
all right. So we both picked Florida to go in and win at Mississippi State. The spread was -6 for Florida. Florida blew them out. Florida won 45-28. The reason we have to mention this game is because we have Mississippi State next.
Right.
They were awful with their quarterback, Blake Shapen. And unfortunately, he had a shoulder injury that requires surgery. He's out for the rest of the year. So they're going to have to bring in, they brought in Michael Van Buren Jr. He's a true freshman, 3-star. He threw 7 for 1,300 yards, moved the ball a little, but too little, too late. The key here, though, in this game is that Florida rushed for 240 yards on Mississippi State. There's no stopping the run, which helps Texas again this weekend.
Yeah.
But another question we just talked about, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. Florida was doing two possessions. This Graham Mertz, one possession DJ Lagway, back and forth, but Mertz ended up with all the touchdowns and all the stats and looked great. DJ Lagway moved the ball a little bit, but how is that helping anybody? How does that help these quarterbacks develop any rhythm, any confidence?
It doesn't, but I think at this point, when you're as bad as Florida is right now, you're grasping for straws, right? This is the thing, like, well, we don't have any answers, so let's just rotate until maybe some miracle happens.
Yeah,
is what this feels like. So, we'll see how this plays out with Florida. We'll see. Again, Texas plays both of these teams, so good for us to pay attention to it. But
yeah,
I think we will start to see if Florida has any hope of recovering the season and trying to win some games, certainly as they go into a pretty brutal SEC schedule for them. In my opinion, they're going to have to settle on a quarterback. They're going to have to find their guy, because we know trial by quarterback just doesn't work out very often. So we'll see. Definitely keep an eye on that. We'll see how that's playing out. But and of course, this week on Thursday, we'll talk more about Mississippi State in our preview of Mississippi State at Texas. Get a little deeper into that quarterback situation there. And does Mississippi State have any hope of leaving Texas alive?
They lost their best defender too to possible concussion protocol.
Yeah, I never want to see
All right.
that.
So that you don't want to see that. So 11 USC, we were watching that game at the tailgate at Michigan. We wanted Michigan to win this game for many reasons. One, because Lincoln Riley's the coach of USC, but also because we want to be hard to go into Michigan and win. And you know what? It is hard to go into Michigan and win.
All right, Tom Herman.
It is. Winning is hard. USC was favored by 5.5.
They were.
This game went to the last second. So they started with Alex Orji for quarterback at Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
He threw for 32 yards.
Wow. Pretty impressive.
That wasn't his longest.
I'm kidding.
I know. No, I'm saying that wasn't his longest throw.
Yeah.
That was total.
Right. Total.
7 passes completed for 32 yards.
Yeah.
That's like 4-point-something yards per catch.
Well,
that's awful.
I want to give you a shout out because you picked Michigan to win this game.
Oh, I did?
You
Okay.
did.
I did. Oh, I
did.
picked Michigan
Yeah.
to win it.
I picked USC on this one. You picked Michigan on this one. I believe. Go back and roll the tape, but I'm giving you more credit than I should.
I don't know. I don't remember. I'll have to go look.
I know that
I don't remember if I did.
Yeah, I know that I had USC in this game. So
I thought I picked USC.
And it did. It came down to the wire. It was definitely a nail biter. But look, Michigan pulled it out. And I thought that USC's defense was going to show up because they had seemed to be improved. And Michigan's offense, we know, has been pretty anemic throughout the year. They don't have that identity. But despite the 34 yards total throwing,
their identity is they went back to Michigan ball, running the ball, 290 yards on the ground on 46 carries. They committed to Orji not throwing,
Big Ten,
and Michigan
ball.
running the ball.
Yeah, look, and again, I love seeing that, and I want to point out there was some question when Texas went in. Like, you're absolutely right. Winning is hard. Winning on the road at a program like Michigan, no matter if they're where they're at in their program, that's still a tough, hostile environment to go in and play. And I think we had talked about the elite defense. We had talked about the elite D-line.
Mm-hmm.
And Texas went in, and the O-line performed so well, it made the world question Michigan's defense. And I think we're starting to see Michigan's defense is still pretty damn good.
Yeah, they are.
Texas just went in and made them look that bad.
Yeah.
So that's, again, I know we're talking about a game that was a few weeks ago for Texas, but as a Texas fan, looking at the body of work, that just gives you more and more encouragement and seeing where this team truly is when you start. As you know, like you mentioned, we haven't really played super tough teams right now at home, certainly not.
But going into Michigan
and playing a team that literally Texas performed so well that it made everybody in the college football world think that Michigan's D-line was hot garbage at this point. And now we're finding out they're not. That's a cool feeling.
Yeah. And USC, a Lincoln Riley led offense, you would think that they would come in there and they would at least score points. And it would be, Michigan might have to play catch up.
Yeah.
It was punt, one touchdown by Michigan, punt. The first 8 possessions were punts and 1 touchdown, the first 8 possessions. But when USC did finally take the lead, it was 24-20 with 4 minutes left. Michigan had to start with the ball at their own 15. Of course, false start. Now they're their own 10. They got all the way down the field, ran in a touchdown, kept with that run game. 30 seconds left for USC to get down the field. They couldn't do it. Couldn't get into field goal range. So Lincoln Riley went home with a big L.
Big L for Lincoln. All right.
So just real quick, Lincoln Riley at USC. He's 21-9. He got no Pac-12 titles while he was in the Pac-12. Only 1 bowl win. 4-8 versus ranked teams. 0-3 versus Utah. Not that matters, but anyway. All right. So Michigan wins, which is great for Texas because it makes our strength of schedule look even better.
Yep.
I'm only mentioning this game because I picked it. Arkansas went into Auburn and won, and I said they would.
You did.
Utah, Oklahoma State. That we thought it would be the oldest quarterbacks ever. Cam Rising didn't end up playing.
Yeah,
but this shocked me that Utah went in there and won that game.
That was another one that I thought Oklahoma State was going to be their opportunity to have their statement. Now that Texas and OU are gone, we kind of run the Big 12. Utah, we know, is coming in with a lot of swagger. But I thought at T-Boone Pickens, it would just be too much for Utah to overcome with Oklahoma State riding that high. And that didn't happen.
No, Utah ran the ball down their throats.
249
yards rushing in Oklahoma State. They couldn't get them off the field. And again, another quarterback controversy. Utah was up 22-3 in the fourth quarter. The game was over. But Oklahoma State went from Alan Bowman to Garrett Rangel to Alan Bowman. So they have a quarterback issue too. Like, I wonder what they're going to do with that one. Yeah. That'll be something to watch too.
Yeah.
Florida State won a game.
Hey.
And moving on. Let's talk about this one. This was the biggest game of the weekend. College Game Day was there.
Yeah.
Number 6, Tennessee. We said this was the easiest money of the week. Tennessee -7 at 15 OU. we said it was the easiest money, and it sure was. OU's defense did exceedingly well. Like to hold Tennessee, who had been dropping 70 points, to hold them to 25 points.
Yeah.
And that was impressive. I have to give props to OU's defense.
Credit where it's due, for sure.
Their offense could not do anything. Jackson Arnold, fumble, lost, interception, just turned the ball over and over.
And back-to-back possessions.
And got pulled.
Yeah.
All right.
Again, we're talking, this is the theme of the week, apparently, is quarterback controversies at other schools.
Not Texas.
Absolutely. But I agree with you, Rocky. Like, this was one that I thought Tennessee was going to come in and just blow OU out of the water. Now, some people are saying, oh, this 10-point win is being OU being blown out of the water. I don't consider 2 scores, especially in this range, in this factor. Like, I don't think that's a blowout. But so that surprised me. Props to OU, like you said, props to their defense for showing up, showing out, and holding Tennessee to only 25 when this is a team that has been scoring, 70 points in games. So
it helps when you give them excellent field possession over and over.
It does.
Field position.
Right. So, I think this is something Texas fans, you got to be excited about as well. Keep an eye on OU. Got another quarterback controversy brewing. We'll see how that plays out. Of course, Texas this week plays Mississippi State, then has the bye week, and then we go into OU. So certainly something to keep an eye on. What does OU look like? Are they going to have their quarterback situation figured out by the time that they get into Texas? So to that Red River shootout. So it'll be fun. What are you thinking for?
I'm just saying, let's Jackson Arnold, because we heard all off season they would take Jackson Arnold over anybody in our quarterback room. He was, and he was highly rated. I know that's highly rated out of high school. Like, yes, he was going to be their big superstar. He had a 1.3 QBR.
I didn't know it could go that low.
I think I could go out there and get a 1.3 QBR.
Yeah.
I think I could maybe 1.3 QBR.
Yeah.
So he got benched right after his third turnover. He got benched. Michael Hawkins came in too little, too late, but has the Sooner fans excited about what he did show at the end, even though it was like punt, turnover on downs, touchdown, punt, turnover. But overall, he moved the ball and they got them excited for that. But the OU's offense, we've seen them light it up with Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops. But right now, 77th in scoring offense, 119th in total offense, 125th in third down conversion. The big question, get past this weekend, they have to go to Auburn. We have Mississippi State at home. Next week, both teams are off. So they have 2 weeks to get this Michael Hawkins Jr. moving and ready to go. And Quinn will probably be back.
Yeah.
And let's see who can put up more points.
Yeah. I think that's again, we'll preview this in more depth, but let's talk about it because it's OU and we hate OU. I think Texas, again, is in a really favorable position right now. Of course, anything can happen. We know that's a rivalry game. Anything, gets a little crazy and bizarre things can happen. Anything can happen. And we know that the excitement's going to be high on both teams. Look, you guys might hate this phrase. We see people say it a lot and Quinn got criticized for it, but especially being in the SEC, this is our first year. Everybody's going to get up to play Texas. Texas is ranked number 1. We've got that target on our back. It's like that no matter what, every game with OU. So I think, it's going to be interesting to watch how that plays out. Again, yet another quarterback controversy, right? But I just don't see a way that OU makes enough progress this quickly and seasons up a very, very inexperienced quarterback this quickly to go into an environment like the Cotton Bowl in early October and play against a Texas defense that is just a beast at this point.
So is OU's. OU's defense is really good. And Venables has an answer for Sark. Last year he did. And let's see if that pressure and all the ways they attacked Quinn, if they can do it again with a year under his belt. We'll see. It's still a couple weeks away. So Aggies, they survived Bowling Green. They were 23-point favorites. They survived by 6 points. We talked about Baylor going to Colorado. That game went to overtime. Baylor's kicker had an opportunity to make it a 10-point game and missed the kick with a minute left. Colorado Hail Mary, we saw it. They went in overtime and won. And the other upset that I called, I said that BYU would either beat Kansas State or lose by 100. And they whooped Kansas State.
You called this one.
They whooped Kansas State.
You called this one. I did not. I had Kansas State being a good season team. They knew what they were doing. No,
That BYU environment was on fire.
That was crazy. Yeah. And quick shout out to this, just in the crazy story category. We saw earlier in the season the FSU fan that said that he would eat a red Solo cup of dog poo if FSU lost, right? And he did, and then he disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was a K-State fan this week before the game that said if K-State loses to BYU, he would shove a 5-layer beefy burrito from Taco Bell up his pooper. And to his credit, graphic, gross. That's a high level of confidence. But I think what we're learning this season is don't make stupid bets that your ass can't check cash.
Yeah, and put them all over social media.
My favorite part of this crazy story was that, number one, this guy is like owning it. He hasn't disappeared off of social. But BYU actually responded. The official account actually responded when they won the game. All they tweeted out was a couple of pictures from the win and Liv Moss. Gotta love it. I gotta love the trash talk right there.
Yeah. Okay. So, of course, all these wins, losses, it affects the AP Top 25. So let's just quickly glance over what happened with the AP Top 25. And I'll play this and we'll tell you what happened. So first, we know Texas stayed number 1 in the country. Number 2 is still Georgia. Georgia will play Alabama this weekend, and we'll know more what happens with that. 3 is still Ohio State. They're still beating up on a bunch of nobody for Alabama. Nothing changed there. Tennessee went up by beating OU. They went up a spot. They swapped with Ole Miss, who went down a spot. Rising Miami, still undefeated. Rising Oregon, but they get to go to Ohio State and Michigan soon. 9 is still Penn State. I don't know who they've beaten that's any good, but Utah rose up for beat. We just saw that they went into Oklahoma State and won. And then here's the rest. Missouri, Michigan rose to 12. USC dropped just below. You got to put them just below Michigan, right?
Yeah.
LSU still hanging on. Louisville, Notre Dame, Clemson, Iowa State. Anything there? You see Oklahoma State and Oklahoma dropped down to 20 and 21. Kansas State dropped. Aggies moved up to 24 for surviving Bowling Green at home.
Look, we've talked about this often. This was kind of Texas's mantra last year, and it took us pretty far. Survive and advance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So give Aggies credit there. They survived. They advanced. I don't know how much longer they keep this dance up, right? They're about to get into the thing.
They have their Dallas game with Arkansas this coming weekend.
Right.
Arkansas is going to win that game.
They get into a pretty tricky schedule coming up for A&M. And again, I had A&M season picked. The one questionable game for me that I wasn't sure which way to go before the season started was this Arkansas game. Historically, A&M has dominated Arkansas, especially in Jerry World. And I'm at this point in the season, I'm trending with you. I think Arkansas has been a bit of a surprise for a lot of people. I've got Arkansas picked as a potential trap game for Texas. And I think Arky's going to show up with that old Southwest Conference rivalry hatred, and they've got something to prove. They've been the cellar dwellers in the SEC for a considerable amount of years, but they're showing some fight. They're showing some ability. So I've got to agree with you, Rocky.
They have an offense now.
Yeah, and they do have an offense, and I think that, A&M might find themselves in trouble moving forward through their season.
I'll call it now. Arkansas is winning that game.
All right.
All right. Okay, so quickly, let's just wrap up by saying what happened with our NFL teams this week. My Titans stunk. They're the worst. They're the worst. Texans, we thought they were great. They were getting to be really good, and then they blew it at Minnesota.
Yeah.
The Eagles. Did you watch the Eagles Saints game? I had it on. It was 0-3 for like most of the game, and then I turned around and it's 15-12. The Eagles win. Yeah. My Titans stink again. Oh, Panthers won a game.
Hey,
we have Jonathan Brooks is on the roster, but Jatavian Sanders, they won a game.
See what happens when you bring a little Texas love to your team?
They won a game. Actually, they won against the Raiders, who just shocked another team a couple days ago. I already forgot who. Oh, Baltimore Ravens, I think. Lions, your Lions won.
Yeah, look, I shout out to Detroit. A little bit of a stumble last week. Early in the season, we still feel okay about it. But I did want to show this clip real quick because pretty unique. This is David Montgomery just running hard, running back. He's really hammering at it. And at a certain point, the Cardinals come up to meet him, and they briefly stop his forward progress, But then his O-line kicks in and watch what happens.
David Montgomery will bounce out of the line. We're going to pick up 9, and there it goes. Just keep going, baby. Talk about surfing. Right.
O-line surfing right
That's
there.
amazing.
Yeah,
His feet were like 2 feet off the ground.
Yeah, his O-line figuratively and literally lifted him up and carried him.
My goodness.
I just need Creed's "Can You Take Me Higher" playing
Yeah.
with that clip. But yeah, it was pretty fun to watch. He said during this run, he's like, "Man, I loved it." He was grinning the whole time. He was laughing as
That's great.
his O-line was carrying him. Just something you don't see very often.
Yeah,
in the
I don't
NFL.
think I've seen that.
Yeah.
All right, so Ravens Cowboys. We watched that game yesterday. The Cowboys were awful for 50 minutes, and then they did their best to too little, too late again. 28-25. As soon as Dak got his big contract, he can't do anything. I don't put that on Dak though. The defense couldn't stop anything, and the receivers were never open.
Do you have hope for the Cowboys this season?
To do what? The same thing they do everything, which is not win a Super Bowl. Sure. And then of course the Chiefs Falcons was an exciting game, and Bijan actually had some good work, and they even put the ball in his hand in the last play in the 4th down at the end, and it wasn't enough. But Chiefs Falcons, Chiefs win again. Chiefs are good. I mean, they find a way. They have the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, hard to. You have to find a way to lose when you got Mahomes, right? Like, he's incredible. So it's the Chiefs again, early favorites for Super Bowl, and Xavier Worthing having another good game. So definitely good there. Last thing before we wrap up, I just wanted to bring this up because I think this is going to be an interesting thing to see how it plays out.
Okay.
In the I would categorize this as a slippery slope potential. But Reggie Bush has said that he is now suing USC, the NCAA, and the Pac-12 to seek compensation for past use of his name, image, and likeness. Now, what do you think about that? How do you feel on that?
I have to read on what grounds he thinks they owe him when that wasn't the rule at the time. But maybe he's trying to set some precedent that they have literally made millions and millions and millions of dollars off his jerseys and names and stuff.
Sure.
And he's probably a little bitter at them that, they exposed that he was a cheater. So
my thing is, look, if I'm going to have this conversation, I think that if Reggie Bush existed in today's day and age with NIL, he would have made a lot of money.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, it was unfortunate. He had his Heisman taken away because at the time, the rules that were in place, he wasn't playing by them. But I just think on the surface, on the face of it. Now, if he is trying to sue to say anything that you sell now or use my name now, you need to pay me, that I can appreciate. Yeah. But if this is truly what you have made
back
from
in
the
2003,
past,
4, 5,
I just don't see how that legal precedent would play. That
maybe
becomes,
he's hoping for some kind of settlement and get a little check and move on.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, is he broke?
But that could open the floodgates. Whether or not he's broke, I think it's different than whether or not he thinks they owe him money.
Right. But my question is, if you set that precedent, that becomes, like I said, a very slippery slope, in my opinion, because now you open up every single former player that has ever been, you know what I mean? I just think that
I don't know. I don't know on what grounds
that becomes a hard thing to litigate. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. But anytime somebody can stick it to the NCAA, that's not a bad thing. So
all right, Megan. So we will be back live Thursday, 3 p.m. Central to preview College Weekend 5. Already, it's going too fast.
We're already a third of the way through the season.
Texas, Mississippi State, Saturday. My big birthday is Friday. I have a big birthday on Friday, so we will preview my birthday.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right. So we'll party it up. So you guys, please join us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, on YouTube, we are Fire the Cannon Podcast. On Insta and X, it is at Fire the Cannon 1. Please give us a follow. Let us know what you're thinking. And join us live Thursday. So we will field your questions. We'll talk about what you guys want to talk about, as well as those previews for Texas starting its SEC run. So for now, y'all, we appreciate you being here. As always, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we are Fire the Cannon.